Hey, coaches. Hope everybody's having a great week. Hey, shout out to Coach Phil Baratella from Rochester Institute, Liberty League champs, 4 times running for the guys and third place for the girls, and some fast times. And shout out to Andrew Kramer from Dayton Raiders, has a state champ in Ohio, 500 freestyle, 431 for his guy. Congrats. And congrats to Maryland LSC coaches. We had a great LSC meet. We are a small state. We've got some fast swimmers. The class of our state right now is a guy named Grant Murphy from Annapolis. Grant's been, well, last night he went 143 backstroke, and then he went 147 flat in the IM to finish the meet on the last day of the meet. He's going to University of Virginia next year. His coach, Stephen Henderson's doing a great job. And Stephen coached a guy named Joe Hayburn, who's also a great backstroker, swimming for Loyola University right now, going, I believe, like 21 mid, leading off the medley relay. He's 46.3, I think, in the 100 backstroke. So what's going on at Annapolis Swim Club? We might have to talk with Coach Stephen about that. He's got another girl named Lily Swope, who she's swimming 25 high in the 50 back, and she's 55 in the 100 back. And I feel like she's somebody who's kind of come out of nowhere, and she's probably on her way to going 53 or better in the 100 back next year. So, maybe we'll have to talk with Coach Stephen about that. I've got a couple other people in mind also that like to have on with our group here for a Zoom call. So looking forward to that. Like to talk about a couple of things. I mean, certainly as coaches, we want to go to meets and have a great experience, have our athletes swim fast. But we want to have as coaches, minimum of stress, maximum of a great experience at the meet. And, I feel like that sometimes doesn't happen with coaches. I feel like sometimes it's just sort of a stressful meet. And, dealing with athletes and kind of like being able to sort of roll with the punches or see things before they're about to happen and kind of like deal with things correctly, it can really help us have a great experience. So, managing things with your athletes is key. And I feel like if I can highlight one athlete through the meet, I think it might be helpful. So I'm going to do that. I have an athlete named Shannon Conway, who I think is a really good up and coming swimmer. She's a sophomore in high school. I got a couple more years with her. This past summer, she went a minute in the long course fly. Kind of really developed the fly last summer. She goes 56 and 203 in the freestyles long course. Short course, she's really been developing everything. And, as a 15-year-old earlier this year, she went a 16:32 in the 16:50. So, and that's for those that might not know short course times, that's a top 10 nationally ranked time. She's got everything. And so I feel like sometimes we make mistakes as coaches to not really read our athletes. And we did everything, I feel, correctly with Shannon really throughout this entire season with her meets, like event selection at meets, and how we managed it. And this meet was no different. So going into the meet, some things that I didn't put her in, like didn't have her swim the 200 butterfly, didn't have her swim the 1650, did have her swim the 1,000, which is on the Thursday night to start the meet. And when she did, she swam a very lukewarm 1,000. She just wasn't into it. She was a 948 seed, went a 958, just seemed like kind of a struggle. And the back of my mind, I knew, maybe later in the meet, that 500 freestyle that I'd put her in might be taken away. And, she had done the 500 freestyle at the high school kind of championship meet a couple of weeks ago, and then at another kind of high school invitational. She's done it a lot. She's done it for us a couple of times. She's swum fast. She's easily going to win the state championship. She might have a time that's ranked top 10 in the country with that event. On that particular day of our meet, that's her best event. It's not really even close. I guess maybe the 200 butterfly would be the other one that would be close, but I didn't put her in the event. She hasn't swum the 50 freestyle to her liking, hasn't really dropped enough time in that to her liking, and she really wants to swim fast in that event. So I didn't put her in the 200 butterfly, which is right before the 50 free. I said, let's go for the 50. Even though her national ranking might not be as good, actually ended up being probably as good. But I decided to do that going into the meet. And then during the meet, I decided to pull the 500. And I don't normally do this, but I did a declared false start. Normally I'd scratch the athlete the day before, but it just kind of happened on the day where I'm looking at this athlete and I'm thinking, if I get her out of here early in the morning and she doesn't have to even swim the morning 500. I think a lot of coaches might say, well, like swim the morning and scratch it. I was like, let's just get out of here. And I feel like that really, it opened her up to really attacking the backstroke enough in the morning. And then at night, like really knowing she didn't have that 500 after it. I feel like I was going to get a couple extra tenths of a second somewhere. I feel like she was going to really have some volition to make it happen. And she did. She went 54.4, came in to meet us at 56.1. We got a really good breakthrough in an event that I think is going to really affect her IM. And I think her 200 IM, which short course is 2 minutes flat. Long course, I don't even know her time long course. She hasn't really made much breakthrough in the IM yet. But I feel like that's going to really affect her quite a bit. Now, there's one major regret that I have with how I handled the meet with Shannon, and it had everything to do with her her event selection going into the meet. Shannon has been beating people locally all year, really for the last 2 years. She's, she goes 147 in the 200 free. It's like most people are just kind of like 150 behind her. That happens in a lot of races in that kind of way, at least locally. And so we haven't done enough not locally to have her kind of like have that experience this particular short course season. So one of my major regrets is not putting her in the breaststroke races. That's an event, 100 breaststroke in particular. If we started the meet, would have been on the first full day of the meet. It would have been with the 200 free and the 100 fly. But I feel that two things would have happened. One, she would have had this adrenaline, this chemical soup, so to speak, in the brain and the body that would have been different during that entire day, because Shannon would have been going for a podium, top 3 finish, get on the medal stand type of thing in that 100 breaststroke. It would have been a big challenge for her. Not sure if she would have done it, but she would have really been striving for it. And I feel like even though it would have been another event for her on that day, she probably would have done better in the 200 free and the 100 fly, just because she would have had more adrenaline and she would have been just more amped for this competitive thing that she was doing. When she swam the 100 backstroke later in the meet, I was very clear with myself that I was not going to be talking to her about trying to do a certain time. And I thought that she'd probably win the event. And I didn't think it would be super close. I felt like she would win it going away, but I did feel that the girl who was, I feel like maybe going to be the competition for, had a good enough 50 back earlier in the meet that I could say to Shannon, don't take her for granted. She's going to be there. Better be ready to race her. Be ready. And so Shannon at that point was like, I'm going to race, and that mentality is so much more valuable than, hey, the junior cut is 54.3. Maybe try to do that. Who cares? Getting cuts is trying to go for cuts creates something in the brain, the body, that's different from trying to win and trying to beat people that maybe you haven't beaten before, trying to beat people that are like coming after you, and just creating that kind of a situation in an athlete's mind. At least in this case with Shannon, it was a really key thing. So anyways, that day that she was kind of like able to skip that 500, I don't have everybody pull out the 500. Okay. I mean, Shannon's the athlete that last summer I made do the 400. I scratched her from the 400 this past summer, and then I went back and I put her back in the event because I felt like I was being too easy on her and she needed to be doing that event. So I do that too. But in this particular case, by taking that event away, she really freed up in the morning. She did go 22.99 in the 50 freestyle, which is great. It takes a little bit of a load off of her mind. It's no different really than a 23 flat, but for her, it's like, okay, I broke through that barrier that I created in my head. It's no longer a barrier. So then she did her backstroke, and then the next day she was able to swim a really good 100 freestyle, 200 IM. Now the next day there was a really key thing that I think we did, which is, sometimes with an athlete that's got a relay, like she had the 100 freestyle and then was going to do the 100 freestyle on the relay to finish the meet. And so sometimes with athletes, you want to say to them, okay, we're putting you on the end of the relay. Chance you have to do your time is in the race. Like she's trying to go 49, not 50, right? So with Shannon, though, I was like, no, I'm going to actually list her on our text message that we send out, like the relay order. I'm going to list her as going first. So she goes into the finals and she feels like, I'm going to go for it in the individual race, but I do have that relay and I can get it then if I have another chance to get it. And some athletes that might not work for, but I knew for Shannon that would take a little bit of the pressure off her and she would be able to just be really free in that 100 freestyle to go for it. Maybe take it out a little bit faster, and let's really kind of go for it. And that's what she did. So I think that if I had put her on the lead off of the 100 freestyle, though, like at the end of the meet, like if I kept her on that spot, then I would have created a situation where she would have gone 49.9 in the individual event. Then an hour and a half later, she would have won 50.4. She had the 200 IM in between, and she's going for something in that too. And I just felt like chances are she's probably not going to go 49 again. So I went over to the table and I switched her, just put her on the end of the relay. It was kind of the easiest switch for me to take the girl that had anchor and just put her in the front and just kind of put her in the back of the relay. And I think that was a good move. And she anchored at 50.4, and she had a little bit of a race too. She was pushing it. I was glad, because she could have gone 50.7, 50.8, and then we finished the season. She's not going to see that short course 100 for a while. I think really important to, if you can, kind of leave the season leave a good swim alone at the end of the season, if possible. Sometimes you got to get some points. You got to do it, whatever way you think is appropriate. There's times you just can't do that, but in this case, I could do that, and I think it's helpful for the athlete. This kind of stuff, like talking about certain athletes, I think can be really helpful for people. So I hope this is helpful for you going forward with your athletes this week, next week, and at your next meet. Have a great day, everybody.